On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, the big MVP showdown tonight. Nikola Jokic hosting Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. Not so much. Joel Embiid is out. Why he is out and why that's the right decision for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight against the Nuggets. We'll break it all down next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. What's good, D?
Oh, what's happening, man? Looking for a big-time matchup tonight. Rematch from the first game that they played in January, but we won't get that. Not so much. No Joel Embiid tonight, man. So that's what's up, and we'll see how this one goes because the Sixers, in terms of standings, we'll talk about that a little bit later. They need this game. Welcome, everybody. You are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Gibbons from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-hosts and partners, always, Keith Pompey. We thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube at Locked On 76ers, with one of the biggest storylines in the season, and that is the 76ers with the record that they've had since December. Arguably the best record in the NBA, the best team in the league. And it was a highly anticipated game tonight against the Nuggets, but Joel Embiid will miss this game due to that calf injury that we've been monitoring for the past two games, where he did play on Friday and Saturday, Sunday off. They decided after shoot around this morning that he will not play. So we'll get into that. We'll start off there. We'll also get into James Harden returning, and he looks like he's going to be back for the game tonight, the last game of this 4-game road trip. And then later on, we'll talk about the seeding. We've been looking at the second and the third seed and saying that that's where they need to stay. Make sure you have that home court advantage. Well, what happens if they fall to fourth? They're only 2 games up on the Cleveland Cavaliers as we get ready for tonight's game. Keith, big development here. I guess that we shouldn't be all that surprised, except for when we talk about the MVP part. We knew that with the 10 games left, if he was going to play every game before the end of the regular season ended, 69 games is the total that he would play. Now, a game here and there probably will not affect the voting and how it goes. But of course, this was looked at as the reigning 2-time MVP against Nikola Jokic, where Embiid got the better of him in that first game in Philadelphia at the end of January, 47-18, and that was on national TV, and the Sixers get the win. We were waiting on this one, and the Sixers have been playing well on the road. The Nuggets are fantastic at home, I believe 31-6 on their home floor. We were really waiting for this one. It didn't seem like the calf was going to be an issue and hold Embiid out. He's now out. Why is that?
You know, I mean, the thing is, if you saw Joel Embiid play the last game against Phoenix, I mean, the guy was tired. I mean, extremely tired. Tired. He had 28 and 10, but he wasn't himself. That just tells you how dominant he is. And it was one of those things is I remember before that game, actually it was after that game where I talked to him about MVP. I talked to him about like missing games, doing a lot of stuff. And, he said, like, I'm going to need to take one game off pretty soon. It's 2 things. He said, like I said, it's all about being healthy for the playoffs. Like tonight, I was sloppy. Now he was talking about the Phoenix game. He said, usually when I'm sluggy and sloppy, that means I'm tired. He says, like you said, I've been playing a lot of minutes. I've been playing every single game. So to add to that, dealing with the calf and whatever the foot, I think at some points you got to look at the bigger picture, which is the playoffs, obviously. So right about now, when you look at it, he's not 100%. He kept saying to me that, the thing about the MVP, it doesn't mean as much to him as everybody thinks it does, and as much as people want. He wants to get he wants to play well in the playoffs. So he wants his team to be able to have success in the playoffs. He wants to be healthy for the playoffs. So if he's not playing well and it could come back and it can hurt his team, then he needs to rest. He needs to rest. Like you said, if he was selfish, if he was selfish, he would have played in the full game against the Chicago Bear. I mean, I was about to say I was like, it's the Chicago. I said the Bears against the
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls. I was trying to catch myself, right? He would have done that, and he would play tonight and try to put on a show. But he looks at the big picture, and if he plays, it could get worse. He said he didn't feel well today at shoot around. So you know what? I commend him for not playing. I think it's a
Well,
smart thing.
well, let me ask you this because I think a lot of people would then go right to with now these 8 games left on the season. Here we go again. He's injured again. And this now is a knock on him as if he did something that caused himself to get injured in terms of the calf. And as you mentioned, he did not come back in the second half of that Bulls game where they were blowing them out. They didn't need him, but he could have also said, no, I'm playing at least the third quarter so I can try to get to my 33-point average so I can keep that going, keep putting these numbers up. It's going to look good in a blowout win. I've done it again in 3 quarters where I can get 30 plus points and we dominate this basketball team in a revenge game of sorts because of what happened on Monday. But he didn't do that. But Keith, that there are going to be some that say, here we go again. He's injured again. He's doing it again. And since he's injured again, he is not in shape. And this is something that has been a common theme for him throughout his career. What do you say to that?
I mean,
As a
I
guy who
say,
has been critical of him for things that he has done that may be looked at as selfish.
yeah, you know what? Here's the deal. Like, I think that, Joel Embiid has improved. Yeah, he's matured. He's done a lot of different things. I mean, I think that this is one of those things where he did injure the calf before in the first game. People forget in Monday's game against Chicago. He stayed in that game, tried to will his team to victory, right? Then he comes out and he plays in the game. The second game, he's feeling it. They're up 30. He doesn't play. I feel like right now, and the narrative is always going to be there when it comes to him. But when people like, especially people in Philadelphia, they follow him closer than most people nationally. They know that the strides that this guy has made, and they know how at this particular time, these last since the all not even all stars since December, he's played in more games in a row than any other season. I mean, the guy has only missed like 2 games since he's been back. So when you add that in, this is completely different. Now, again, selfish Joel Embiid would want to go out there and play and want to do something because he would want to impose his will and prove that he is that guy. But right about now, I think that people what they need to focus on is how can he get treatment on this? And he did say that there was going to be 1 game that he was going to miss, right? 1 game that he was going to miss. And I think how he could do this and then just miss this game and hopefully be back for Wednesday against the Dallas Mavericks because they're going to need him against Dallas. And let me add this, Dick. You can't be happy with everything. But I remember before there was a time where Joel would take off certain home games when he had a game to skip. And he would take off the home game, but then would play on the road. He did that one time, and people were upset about it. So now when you look at it, yes, this is a big game, a huge game individually for him. But I feel like the fans will be happier that at the end of the day that they're going to be able to see him play Wednesday night as opposed to him putting on a show for the people in Denver.
4 games left at home, 4 games left on the road with these 8. And to your point, the home team, the home crowd should be able to get to witness him again after a few days off against the Dallas Mavericks in another situation there for a revenge game against the struggling Dallas Mavericks on Wednesday night. Interesting development, of course, but it is the right move, Keith. I agree with you. It's about the health, and it's about how good are you. If you are good enough to beat any of these teams, then you should be able to beat them wherever you are in the standings, and you need your 2 big dogs to do so. We'll talk about the standings later. Coming up next, we'll get into the reinforcements, if you will, of James Harden coming back. Can he guide this team to victory tonight? What has he been talking about along this trip? He has been on the trip, and that's a good sign. Although he hasn't played, and he should be able to play tonight, he has not been on the trip. What is James Harden going to bring to the table? And also, Keith, what are they going to do at the center position? I'm very curious. PJ Tucker, Paul Reed, Dwayne Dedmon, Montrezl Harrell. Well, who gets the nod tonight in the middle? We'll get into it next, what James Harden brings to the table this evening, right here, Locked On 76ers.
Right now, I want to talk to you about PrizePicks, right? So with PrizePicks, tonight, I'm taking Luka Doncic to score more than 26.5 points. LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds. Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 3-pointers, right? Made. So here's the thing. How does PrizePick works? What you do is you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you and the projections available. PrizePick offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, and on and on. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, right? So this is how you do it. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit matchup to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit matchup to $100.
Welcome back. Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast for nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, I'm going to read a tweet to you. You might know this author of the tweet. Harden ended his workout by bouncing the ball off the backboard to himself and dunking the putback on the dunk. Hashtag looks good to play flow.
Yeah, who did that? Who wrote that? It's like me stuff. Yeah, he looked good. He
looks
looked
like
good.
Point guard is back, man. What were you able to see? And he looks pretty good. You're able to find some things out. He's ready to go for this game tonight. And if so, what should we expect from James Harden?
Yeah, he's ready to go. I mean, he's going. It's funny. What they do is they'll say, yeah, he's expected to play. Like when it comes down to the star guys, it's like expected to play. He's playing. I mean, based off of that dunk, and I'm a little disappointed that I didn't have the camera because I was like taping everything else, and then when I'm like, I missed it. Sorry, but anyway, he looks good, man. He looked good out there. Now again, when he does the portions that I saw, when I come in there, he's typically doing stuff by himself, or Jason Love, one of the player development coaches, typically works with him, in the game situations. But James looked like James. I mean, the shot was falling. I mean, he was fluid. He was moving. He wasn't favoring that Achilles at all. And the icing on the cake was that dunk. I mean, he looks good. And the good thing is that they kind of need him tonight. I mean, let's be real, D. When he was out these last 2 games, and they did have some other injuries, but when he's out, you got to take Maxey out of his role, put him in a different one, and other people. And the bench was just getting destroyed. One game they got outscored 54-14 in bench points. The other game it was 53-17 in bench points. So, and that's because James wasn't there and other people had to fulfill different roles. So I think having him back is not a blessing, but yeah, it's a blessing for the Sixers. It's a blessing for the Sixers that he is back, especially on the night that Joel Embiid's not playing.
Now they're going to have to get this done as a team tonight, and it's great that Maxey's playing the way he's playing with the 37 in the last game to lead all scorers. Melton has since gone cold since he was so hot, but he's a streaky shooter. He could bounce right back, and with the ball coming from James Harden, finding his teammates, including players like George Niang and Daniel House, for that matter, who was also out the last game, may be able to set some things up and get some things going in another way versus what we see with Joel Embiid. And that's the question. Can James Harden and Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, lead this team to victory over this Denver Nuggets squad, Keith? They're pretty good at home, 31-6, and tremendous at home, 31-6. Can they get it done tonight without the big fella?
You know what? I think it's going to be tough. 31-6 is hard. I mean, I think you have Joel Embiid. He dominates and he brings a lot. I mean, I guess to me, in order for them to do that, it's going to be on Tobias Harris. I think Tobias has to have a larger role tonight. I mean, definitely he's going to have to be the guy for them to do it. I mean, I think that what we'll see a lot more balanced scoring. Also, I would say, one of those things, well, what are the centers going to bring to the table? Now, the thing is, the question is, if you're the Sixers, are you going to go with a small ball lineup?
That's where I was going next.
You know what I mean? Because that's the guy who basically shut him down last time, PJ Tucker. And are you going to say, I want to play my best 5 players right now? And right now, the best 5 players, the fifth one would be DeAnthony Melton. So is that something that you really want to utilize and do that? Now, the one thing is, I can understand getting up and down with small ball, you want to run, right? But now we're up in this altitude. And can you withstand the running that Denver is going to do? Can you run with Denver? But that's a good question. Like, are you going to go with the small ball lineup and try to neutralize the Joker?
I'm curious to see if that's where Doc Rivers and even Dan Burke as a defensive coach, if that's where they go, because that's going to be a really, really important part here of how you start the game. The Sixers have been in both of these games despite losing. They've led against the Warriors and the Suns on Friday and Saturday, and unfortunately losing both of them. But in this case, they can run you out of the gym if you try to keep up with them and play their style of basketball, and it's not working. So small ball lineup, Paul Reed maybe getting the early nod, but a quick hook. I don't see Dwayne Dedmon because he cannot keep up in terms of that. But as far as the size go, that's the best size you have as your backup center position. So very curious to see where it goes. And if they do, they're probably going to go some sort of zone if they do that in going with that small ball lineup. And where does Nikola Jokic defend? Is he going to defend PJ Tucker where he's now out in the corner? Well, guess what? That gives you an opportunity to take players off the dribble and get to the basket and finish with no rim protection, even though Nikola Jokic is not known as a shot blocker in that way where he's protecting the rim. So interesting to see what they do, how they go about it. This is where it all comes into it. And, Doc Rivers gets up for games like this where he has to now coach in a different way when he's missing somebody. So I can't wait to see what the lineup is tonight. We've seen different lineups. I can't wait to see if they decide to go small ball.
And I will say this, D, real quick before we get into this, this live read commercial break. But I will say this: has it set up, and you covered the Sixers longer than I have, to one of these nights where the Sixers win
the game.
You win the game because you're looking at it and you're saying, "Wow, they lost 2 in a row, lost 3 of the last 4. Joel's not playing. They're going up against the Joker. Oh man, I don't even know if I'm gonna watch it. It's gonna be a 9:30 start, and then next thing you know, they win." Yep. So it's set up that way, y'all. Set up that way.
It absolutely is. All right, the setup right now is the Sixers in the 3rd seed, currently 2 games in front of the Cleveland Cavaliers, 2.5 back of the 2nd seeded Boston Celtics with 8 games to play. These last 2 losses hurt a bit in the standings where Cleveland has won their games, so has Boston. The Sixers have not. Are they going to end up with that 3rd seed, or could they drop to 4th? We'll talk about why they need to stay in the 3rd, or why they might want to go to 4th. We'll get into that next. Final segment right here, Locked On 76ers. But March Madness is going on, so I got to tell you about Built Bar's March Madness. The Built Bar March Madness bracket is here. It has been here for a while, and we are down to the last 4. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now it's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorite bar, just like these favorite 4 teams that are remaining in the March Madness tournament. It's going to be fun with so many lower seeds, surprising teams there ending up for the championship opportunity. This is how you get it done here with the Built Bar. I'll be voting for the cookies and cream bar, like I've been telling you, because that is my favorite. That is just absolutely my favorite. And of course, if you want to talk about, I'm looking at Miami a little bit. I got a little local feel there where I'm hoping for the local guy to win a championship, to win. And then, we'll be voting for the bar too. So support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you will be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. How easy is that? How great is that? Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. So yes, we're giving away 50 Locked On listeners for a free box, but then one fan will win a 12-month subscription. So get on in here. You got to try Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they are so amazing. You won't think they are good for you, but they are. What makes Built bars and puffs so good? Well, for starters, they are all high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right. You heard me correctly. Real chocolate. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you are there. You can vote every day in March. So hop on in and support your pick. Only a few days left in the month of March. Good luck. All right, welcome back. Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey. I'm Devon Givens. All right, Keith, right now, Sixers 49-24 after these last two losses. Cleveland Cavaliers, they're creeping up on them, man. They're right behind them, just 2 games back. And the Boston Celtics have won a few games. Them and Milwaukee are the only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference with 50-plus wins. Also, Denver has 50-50. Denver's only 1 game better than the 76ers. They're 24, where the Sixers are 49-25 here on the campaign. So when you look at things, Keith, right now, man, and you get ready for this game tonight, should they stay in the 3rd seed and face Boston for that number 2 spot, even though Boston's not too far from Milwaukee and they could still get that number 1? Who's the better matchup, assuming they get past, let's say, Miami or Brooklyn in that first round? Who's the better matchup in the second round, Boston or Milwaukee?
I'm not really big on I'm big on just playing games and trying to win as many games as you can and being competitive, right? Because I think sometimes, it could backfire on you. Like, you know what I mean? You want to lose a couple games, this and that. But what you're saying is making a lot of sense. Or the question you're asking, y'all, what he's saying is, if you look at it, right about now, the 76ers, if they stay number 2 or stay number 3, regardless, they got to play the Boston Celtics the way it looks right now. So with that being said, it's kind of like you look at the Boston Celtics who've had success over the Sixers. They won 3. They have a 3-0 series advantage over the Sixers. They hold the tiebreaker. Whereas if the Sixers slid to number 4, then what they would do is they would, in the second round matchup, they would go up against the Milwaukee Bucks if everything stayed pat. Now, the Sixers have owned a 2-1 series advantage over Milwaukee, and they match up.
One more game to play.
One more, yep, and they match up very well against the Bucks, extremely well against the Bucks. So you would think if for a team that really wants to get out of the second round, that this might be the right way to go. But the thing is, and there's some people say like, yo, if you hold out players, because let's face it, Sixers schedule isn't getting any easier. Wednesday, they have Dallas. Then all of a sudden they had upcoming games against Boston, upcoming games against Milwaukee, right? And so it's one of those things where they may, on paper, benefit by being a number 4 seed as opposed to being a number 3. The only thing is, I always think like the basketball guys have a way of making you pay for when you do stuff like that. So to me is, in a perfect world, just continue to keep fighting, because let's face it, the Sixers have been, until recently, the hottest team in the NBA. But I get it, man. I think that they just need to keep playing hard. They need to keep playing hard. and just win as many as they can and get where they are.
Well, I've always looked at Milwaukee too as the better matchup. And Boston last season, they split season series 2-2. This season, Boston has had their number, taking all 3 games in a variety of different ways of winning those games. Two in Boston, 1 in Philadelphia. The last one being played here in Philadelphia, where Jason Tatum hit the game winner to beat the Sixers by 3. And this next one, they're going to play them next Tuesday, 8 days from now, back here in Philadelphia, after they travel to Milwaukee on Sunday to take on the Milwaukee Bucks. So I hear you, man. I'm with you. And but like you pointed out, don't run away from a matchup, because if you do that, guess what? You might get what you ask for if you, let's say, all right, let me fall into the Milwaukee thing. If you fall in Milwaukee thing, Milwaukee might knock you off because they're pretty good too. They have an MVP candidate in Giannis as well.
Yeah, and think about this, man. 2 years ago, how many years it was when they went to the bubble? That was the one year where I remember Joel said, yeah, it finally feels like a rivalry or whatever when they had the advantage over Boston. They were finally beating Boston. And then what happens is they lose. They lost. They start losing to the. I mean, they got swept by them.
Yeah, but Ben Simmons was hurt. He didn't play in the series.
Yeah. Like things happen. You know what I'm saying? It's like one of those things where, everybody was like, yeah, this is the team we want. And Ben Simmons was hurt. Joel Embiid was battling through injuries. It was just, I don't know, it was just bad. It was a lot of pressure on Brett Brown, so they ended up getting swept. So, it's like, it's good to try to get and face certain teams, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to get the outcome that you expected.
Not at all. And just for the people who don't know, again, 4 games at home and 4 games on the road for the Philadelphia 76ers. And just to kind of update everybody on what the schedule is, tonight they have the Denver Nuggets. On Wednesday, they will host the Dallas Mavericks. On Friday, they host the Toronto Raptors. Then they go back on the road for, what is that, Sunday? Keith, they are in Milwaukee on Sunday, back home Tuesday to take on the Boston Celtics. Then they are home for Miami on Thursday, at Atlanta on Friday, and then Sunday they close out the season on April 9th at Brooklyn. So 4 games home, 4 games on the road, and this might tell the story. But those matchups against Milwaukee and Boston are going to mean something, just because of, we're going to see you in the playoffs, one of you two, if not both. We need to beat both of these teams, and let's send this message to you of how we are going to handle things in the playoffs. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, like, we're looking at it, you got Boston and Milwaukee both still trying to contend for that title. You know what I mean? It's like, what is it, 2 games that separates them.
Top seed,
yeah, for the top seed. So, like, Eastern got regular season title. So it's one of those things where, yeah, they're going to probably most likely play. They're going to play because they want to get that. I mean, not only are they thinking about, okay, well, we might have to match up against the Sixers, they're thinking about playing each other for the conference finals. So
again, they're not even. That's exactly, because I've been saying this, and we talked about this before here. I know I've said it on the radio. You've talked about it. You've said it in your columns when you've written your stories. The Sixers are worried about Boston and Milwaukee. How much are Boston and Milwaukee worried about the Sixers?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're looking. Yeah, that's true. That's a good one.
How much? Now, make them think about you based on what you do in these last 2 games. Yep. Make sure they want to avoid you. How about that?
Yep.
How about that?
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, listen, this was fun. And of course, sorry, everybody, it was late. We had some things that we had going on that we had to do it so late this way, but we will be back tomorrow. We thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We will break down tonight's game tomorrow against the Denver Nuggets, minus Joel Embiid, but James Harden is back in the lineup, we think. Now, make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Keith, you mind letting the good folks know where they can find us?
Like my man D said, wherever you get your podcast, you can get this podcast, and it's free and available. Also, if you go to our YouTube channel, make sure that you click on the Liberty Bell, and you become a new subscriber. Not only that, you get notifications when our next our podcasts come out. In addition to that, make sure you listen to my man D tonight from 6 p.m. to midnight. So he's going to do the pre and the post game show. If y'all stay up and all that and listen to watch this game, but it's going to be D doing all that stuff. Also, what you need to do is follow D on Twitter, right? It's Devon G975. Devon G975. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. And you can read my articles in the Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com.
And sometimes you can catch Keith on 97.5 The Fanatic. Also, he was on there earlier today, checking in on the radio side. So, yeah, good stuff, man. I was listening. You didn't know I was listening.
No, I thought you were busy.
I was, but I was listening.
Oh, you keep it locked, huh?
Hey, man, I keep it locked. Well, listen, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. We'll be back tomorrow to break down this still highly anticipated matchup. The Sixers need some wins, and let's see if they can get to 50 wins tonight after taking on the Denver Nuggets. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, Keith.
Peace.